See, that's my live face.
That's your live face.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture. And I do want to remind everybody that a bunch of links are up above. So please go click those links, use those links, support this show, buy me a coffee. Every dollar matters. And without further ado, I have two wrestlers on, professional wrestlers, Delmi and Rip Byson. So welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us both.
Yeah, no, I am very excited because obviously I interviewed you, Delmi, before, and actually this is technically the second time. And obviously I'm meeting her for the first time, but I'm a big Limitless fan. I enjoy a bunch of stuff up in New England. But we are only going to be talking about one thing, and that is pro wrestling grind. Because that's sort of your baby that's about to, I guess, be born in October, for lack of a better word. And so what is pro wrestling grind for starters, and how did this even come about? Because it is very interesting.
Well, I mean, I think we both have talked about running shows. I've been able to have the opportunity to run two different shows. It wasn't for a promotion itself. One was just a charity show for a friend. And then the second one was just a kind of like a brewery show that me and Ashley did. It was just, for fun that we threw together. And Rip was actually a lot more serious about the whole promotion aspect of that. So I'll let you take over the second part of the question with that.
Yeah, I guess really just wanted to start running our own shows. I mean, collectively, we've both been in the business for, 18 years now collectively. And we just started having a lot of ideas about, this is what I do, seeing some guys wrestle around. We've been traveling all over the country and seeing a whole bunch of guys wrestling going, what if this guy wrestled this guy and so on? And then all of a sudden you start thinking about it and you're like, I have a card now. So what if we could put that card on a show and get people in the building? Then we have ourselves a show. So that's really where it came off. And then finally it just came to a head about 2 months ago where we said, you know what, let's just start buying stuff for this and let's put some money into this idea and get it going. So it's not just a dream, now it's reality.
Yeah. Kind of forced us into making that leap of faith finally.
And then to even go further, because obviously the two of you have taken a big leap of faith where you actually purchased a ring. And you sort of teased it out a little bit on Twitter. And then eventually, I think a week or 2 weeks later, you explained sort of why you bought a wrestling ring. But that's a big commitment in a lot of ways. And so what was that like? Because obviously now this is not an idea anymore. It's actually happening. When you go out and buy a wrestling ring, you're taking a bunch of steps. And so what was that like? Because it's huge to say, hey, now we're definitely inching and running towards this.
Yeah, it was a big commitment for us to kind of buy like the wrestling ring. Our thought process with it was kind of, if we can't run the wrestling promotion right away, at least we have a pro wrestling ring that we can, one, rent out. You can gain money from that, doing rental fees. You can maybe set it up in a building and at least you have a different place where you can practice on your own before you, accumulate whatever it is that you need to start running a promotion. For us, we're fairly ambitious and things that we have to do things right away if there's something that we want to do. I'm not that much of a patient person. I don't think you're that patient. So
it's not really patience. It's more of I never did the step, always thought I've been talking about getting a ring ever since I started wrestling.
Yeah.
So
you
but
definitely want a ring.
I wanted a ring so bad, and then finally when we started seriously talking about running a show, we're like, well, let's cut out the middleman. Let's not rent anything from anybody. Let's just be in charge of this. And so what's the first step to a wrestling show? Well, you need a ring. I mean, I guess you don't need to. There's plenty of no ring shows going on now all over the place, but we're not running a no ring show. We're running with a ring. So our first step is obviously get the ring, and then build around that.
And that's something that's very interesting because obviously there's a few ways where a bunch of companies just rent rings. And obviously I've never ran a wrestling show. I've never rented a ring. I don't know if I'm ever going to, maybe, who knows, but it's this idea that if you have a ring, you control it. And there's a lot of things that you can do when you own your ring. and that you have it versus saying being dependent on somebody else. And it's a whole, business side that I think a lot of people don't understand, that, well, things can get complicated if you don't have a ring. You're beholden to somebody else. They could always change the price on you and a variety of other things. But if you own it, you control it. And
at least we know the ring's going to show up to the show.
Yeah.
At least we know the ring will be there. We don't know about wrestlers, but we know the ring will be there.
We'll just wrestle each other 6 times. It'll be fine.
Hey, if Tony Deppen can wrestle a broom, I'm just saying. That's all I'm going to say is that I think 2 of you could easily wrestle a broom and make it look good. And so that's something that I think is super interesting as well, where there's a lot of ownership, I feel, being presented. And then the other thing that's a big thing, and it's sort of, I guess, the first pillar, is that both of you love Japanese wrestling. You're heavily influenced. I think, Rip, you spent time in Japan. I know, Delmi, you spent a bunch of time in Japan.
Oh, I wish I went to Japan. It seems like from all I do is watch Japanese wrestling, but that's the goal still in my career, is to get over there. But she went over there for how many months?
3 months with Marvelous. And I did go over during high school, but that was separate from wrestling. That was just part of my Japanese program that I was in. Japanese culture itself has been a huge influence for me. It's something that I followed as a kid with anime, and as I got older and into high school, I was able to study it as a language and its culture. And it's kind of crazy how, being with Rip, we both have that kind of admiration towards it, towards the wrestling and towards just the way they do things in general and the way they present things. I really love how respectful they are towards the sport, and that's something that we kind of want to bring over to the Western Massachusetts area that hasn't seen maybe that kind of style yet.
And there's a lot of stuff going on. WWE has pretty much made it clear that they take guys and then they teach them the NXT way and they teach them into the main roster way. And that's been a pretty well-known fact. And WWE has pulled out of New England in a lot of ways. And some people are returning back to New England, which is very exciting on certain people. But it's this idea that you guys don't want to do that route, where you actually want to put forth and show what wrestling is. And your promotion is very much presenting what wrestlers can do in the ring and allowing them to wrestle. And it's something that I think is lacking in wrestling in a lot of ways, is to let people put on really good matches. And that seems to be a big pillar of, pro wrestling grind. And so what is that like for you guys to put that first and foremost and be sort of the standing thing out there? Because it is very cool to allow people to actually be athletic and put that forefront.
Well, I think around here, and this isn't a knock against any promotions around here, there's a lot of shows that just have their lack of better term, they're like fun, party kind of shows. And I think there's a big fan base that they love that style, but they want another style where they can actually go in and watch it and be like, oh, these guys are actually fighting. And there's a desire there for that. Hell, even when we announce people and stuff, there seems to be a big excitement to see what we can do or put together with this. So I think there's a market that hasn't really been touched in this area of that. And I think we're just going to try to exploit it. And, it's not going to take away from those other shows. It's just going to add. And then there's going to be a bigger wrestling community at the end of the day,
Yeah, it's like how deathmatch wrestling is kind of its own separate thing. And I would never get in the ring as a deathmatch wrestler myself. I would get in the ring and do, my style, really emphasizing the drama and the storytelling in the ring versus that. But that doesn't mean that deathmatch wrestling is any less or any better than the style that we're going to portray. It's just there's different genres in wrestling, and this is the genre that we're going to tell.
Yeah, and that's something that you brought up about New England, and there's a lot of promotions where a lot of them have a very fun vibe to them, and there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy fun wrestling shows, and they tend to have sort of almost a storyline and very, very scripted. And there seems to be a moving agenda with a lot of these promotions to some degree, what they're trying to achieve. Sometimes it's 4 storylines. Obviously, social media comes into it. There's obviously vignettes. And I think there is something lacking of almost big fight feelings in wrestling right now. where, obviously, I mean, just to go into WWE again, because it's a perfect example, John Cena versus Roman Reigns is a big fight feel. But a lot of wrestling right now, I feel, isn't that way. And it seems like you guys really want to push that big fight feel and let people go and have this, fight and actually make it a competition versus, having it sort of fun and silly, which I think, again, as you stated, there's a place for that as well. But there is something lacking. And also, bringing in the Japanese style when it's legitly 9 to 14,000 miles away, depending on your travel, is also very cool in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know about you so much, but I notice when some of my matches, when guys come up and they find out they're wrestling a Rip Byson match, that is the new lingo. Oh, you get the Rip Byson match now on the show. At least at Limitless, that's what it is. So it's like, oh, great. Now I have this reputation I got to stand up to. But, they come up to me and they're not worried about doing the rough and fight style. They're like, oh, I really want to do this, I really want to try this because I do this so much, do this other style so much. This is my chance to open up. And I think everybody has that ability to open up and show how athletic they are. We're trying to really just let them do their thing, let them be a professional wrestler. Don't say, okay, here's 6 minutes and go have a fun or go have fun with 6 minutes. We're going to give our wrestlers 15, 20 minutes for them to tell a long story and really show what they can do. Because some people don't get to do that,
Yeah.
And show us the athlete you are. Show us you have a little bit of grit in you. Rub some dirt in your wounds, It's like, I feel like everybody wants to do it. Just nobody is really willing to be pushed into that, and I'm hoping that with what we're trying to promote, we'll be able to push people into that, and we'll get some really great stuff.
And even to follow up on that, because obviously, I'm a big comic book fan, and so there's two types of comics. There's one shots where somebody's telling a story in 40 pages, and there's an art to that, and that's a short story to some degree. And if you get your point across in 40 pages, great. But also sometimes I want a 50-issue arc where it's building up to something, and that it's also nice to have pacing in there. And obviously I've watched matches that are 8 minutes long, and I've watched matches that are 30 minutes long, and sometimes they're great on both sides. And obviously it's very cool though when you have a one-sided war going, and then for the next 10 minutes goes the other way, or it's just chain wrestling is going back and forth for 15 minutes, and actually seeing what people can do and then getting innovative in a ring. And I feel that, sometimes in an 8-minute match, you get 2 minutes of that, and then, you got to set up the finisher, and then it doesn't work. And then it's like, okay, that's over. And it just almost feels like breathing, especially in between, like, you have 3 of those matches in a row on a card. And it's sort of, I feel, because some of these wrestlers are great, and then you see them in an 8-minute match and you feel incomplete as a fan. And so obviously it's the same thing with comics sometimes. So obviously I want to see longer matches. And I think a lot of people also want to see that because a bunch of these people don't get that opportunity.
Yeah, let the wrestlers wrestle, It's like everybody, and like we're planning on running 6 to 7 match cards. So very short, or not short, but less matches. There's a lot of 12, 14, even 10 matches, I think, is a ton on a card. And they're trying to cram that into, well, it doesn't work out, but they were trying to cram that into 2 hours. It ends up going 3.5 hours, and the fans just get tired at the end of that. So we're trying to give a little bit faster, 2 hours. Everybody's focused for that 2 hours because the matches are a little bit longer. You can pay attention, and it's just showcase these guys that we're booking because, man, they're even out of the 5 announcements we've had, there's just so much talent already, and very proud with who we're able to get for this first show. And we're actually on the works of getting our second show booked up too. And I'm very proud of the talent that we're going to see some really special stuff. I'm really excited about that. I'm excited I'm going to be wrestling on the show myself, but I'm excited to sit back and actually watch this show. Not many shows I like to sit down to watch every single match, but this one it's like I'm booking my own dream
Yeah,
night,
any of these matches that we have written out right now could steal the show. So that's like the incredible thing with that is all the performers have the ability to be able to tell whatever they want in the ring. I know personally for me, I kind of feel not gypped, but in a way I can't react in a ring as a performer or as a wrestler the same way in 5 minutes as I would in a 10-minute match. You know, your strikes are going to look a lot more impactful because there's a lot more anger that your character is portraying for not having finished the match yet. Like, what do I have to do to put this person away? Versus in a 5-minute match, if you just did, you know, like some sort of pin combination and then they just happen to get you, you're not going to be as frustrated as you would in a 12-minute match where you couldn't get the win or your person couldn't pick up, you know, a finish.
Yeah, there's a lot. I completely understand that, and as a fan, you know, it gets annoying. Also, you know, shorter matches aren't really believable in my world. When I'm seeing a 5-minute or 8-minute match versus a 30-minute match, you know, even just seeing the wear and tear on a wrestler's body in 20 minutes and knowing that, you know, they're going to be finishing this thing up in 5 minutes and seeing them beat up a little bit, it feels more real. I mean, and it's kind of cool, like seeing some of your matches, Rip, with the CPP. Like those matches are wild, and you feel like it's a real fight.
Yeah, I feel. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do them, but yeah, you know. No, it's just, and I find myself, it personally with me, I just like longer matches. I like being in there longer. I feel like it's more stressful to get the short matches out of the way, you know, but I mean, I guess that's a little bit of selfish on my part, you know, save it for the rest of the show. But yeah, I just think for this show, let's limit the amount of matches and let's showcase the guys we book. Let them do their thing and let's show how great they are, you know.
And that could be like it doesn't have to be hard hitting. We don't want them to like take 20 bumps in the ring, but they can start off like with their
take
showing
20 bumps. 20 bumps is a very little amount of bumps. Need more bumps.
I'm just saying,
all
like,
the bumps.
They can take that time and like they can work a hold. Whereas, like, I remember when I started, all I learned in the beginning was chain wrestling, and then I would start off and I would have 5 minutes to a match, and it's like, never mind, I don't get to do that. And that's all I had to start off with, and I never got to showcase that. But someone who's like, you know, a Kevin Koo, who that's what he does in a ring is he picks a body part. He has the time to show that and show that to the audience, and they can be able to interpret it.
We're going to get to Kevin Koo in a minute because I got a funny Kevin Koo statement to make, and he might not like it, but that's all right. But anyhow,
show up.
But anyway, one of the things that's super interesting is that obviously you two are booking it, and as you stated, it's sort of your dream, and that you're putting a bunch of wrestlers and moving wrestlers around and seeing who could go up against who. And obviously, we're going to go through some of the people that you have brought, you know, and signed already, and there's 5 so far, and there's going to be a bunch more. But what is this like for you to figure out, saying, okay, who am I booking? What matches can they be in? Because obviously, you know, wrestling is now global in a lot of ways. Obviously, you don't need to pull out of New England. New England is very well connected, but you guys know a lot of people between the two of you. And so what is this like? Because obviously now you're getting to play with a lot of pieces, and you really have a huge pool to pull from.
Well, we just realized that I'm going to say definitely for this first show and most of the second show that we were booking, Delmi and I have both wrestled all of these roster members. We've all shared a ring with every single person booked on the show at some point or another in our careers. So I'm not saying that's why we're booking them, but it's funny how it worked out that way.
But also New England is very connected. It's a very connected wrestling circuit as well.
But we got not a lot of our talent is coming from New England. We got some core guys, but then we're going to be reaching obviously into the tri-state area. But then we got some like we have Kevin Koo coming up from the South. We have another wrestler coming from the South that we're going to announce in coming weeks as well. And then we also have like Kobe Christ coming from Canada. And we're really willing to reach everywhere just to bring them here, because this area just hasn't gotten a chance to see that. To get a show that you get to see all these guys, you have to go out east towards like Worcester, where Beyond Wrestling is, or where Limitless Wrestling runs up in Maine, is where they really get this international or national feel for their roster. And I feel like we're far enough away from them where it's not going to look like we're taking away from their feel, but we can. This area hasn't really had that big. I guess Blitzkrieg.
I was about to ask this question: is that obviously Beyond is around there, Limitless is around there. I think Chaotic is around there, and so obviously there is this entire thing with New England where it's very connected, but it's also a curse because things can conflict, and also it's territory. You don't want to step on people's toes to some degree. And obviously, you also don't want to be in a massively oversaturated market. And you guys are sort of far enough away that, that's not going to be such a big issue. And that also there's a whole fan base that hasn't seen it and that, doesn't feel like they have to make a choice of loyalty. And it sounds crazy in today's age, but there is that always in effect. Obviously, I come from the comic world. DC or Marvel is my world.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a big issue when you start saying, well, what movie did you see? Obviously Black Widow or Suicide Squad. It becomes that discussion first. And so obviously that was sort of where I think you were going, but that was my next question.
Yeah, we're pretty, actually, we have, it's funny, we did some scouting and we have most of the schedules of everybody around the area. Well, not everybody, but the really big players who would bring in talent that we would be sharing, and we're trying to schedule around them so that everybody can go and see all these great shows. Nobody is missing out on bookings. It's not screwing up with the boys. It's not screwing up with territory wars or promotional wars and stuff. Really just trying to add to the work for the wrestlers instead of saying, oh, we're going to run a show. We're going to run every show out of town. That's not how it works. We're not Vince McMahon. We're not any of those big shows that are trying to buy everybody up. We're just trying to run our little thing because we think we have an audience around here that deserves to see this.
And also as performers, like, we understand how frustrating it could be to like lose one opportunity to have to take another, and feeling like you're conflicting with promoters or feeling like you may never get brought back if you say no. So we're definitely just like trying to add to people's schedule and trying to give people more work on the independents, especially in New England. Like, someone can do, Chaotic on a Friday and maybe we're running Saturday. So then they're right there, they can just drive 2 hours down and they have their next show.
I was going to go there too, because obviously, when you're bringing in talent that might be 6 or 8 or 10 hours away and they're doing a Beyond show and then Beyond's not that far away, it's very economical for that wrestler, because obviously for them to drive another 4 hours for another show instead of having to drive 10 hours back, or if they are driving 14 hours but they get 2 shows out of it, obviously it's a much more, bigger pocket and it's more worth their money, and it helps both promotions out in a lot of ways as well, just from an economic and time standpoint.
Yeah.
And so obviously that's something that's very big as well. So that's cool. And then obviously there's a lot of other stuff going on too. So obviously Matt Mikowski was the first signing. Yeah, that's a big deal, and that adds a lot of, I guess, verification. So what was that like, having him the first one? He's killing it right now. He's scary at Frog Sport. Great concept.
So we actually do watch like MMA and UFC together with a couple of our friends. So when we were booking up the show, we knew if we brought in Mikowski, because they already have that interpretation of MMA and they're MMA fans, they would come and see him because they would want to see, one of the legitimate fighters in the ring and see what he can do in a pro wrestling standpoint. And so that was definitely one of the first people we booked. Rip, you actually have a friend who does MMA.
Yeah, and then I have a couple of buddies who actually have been up to Bellator, where Mikowski was very successful and stuff. So it's bringing over all these different fans too. Maybe it's not just the wrestling fans now. Now we have some MMA fans. Oh, they'll recognize him and they'll want to see what he can do in a wrestling ring, because maybe some of them don't know where he went. You know, I don't know if I honestly don't know if he's still interested in doing MMA, but if he disappeared, maybe this is a chance for them to reconnect with their with his fans in that sense and stuff. And also, he just fits our style. Man, that guy's an ass kicker, and he take no names. And I think that's a big stamp of this is what we're promoting. Here's Matt Mikowski, we're not trying to force people into this position. We're trying to book guys that would do well in this type of show. So we're really trying to look into that, and so that's mainly a big reason why we're bringing him in.
And also, he can do everything. He's been in trios matches, obviously the frog sport stuff. Thunder Frog's not doing too well from what I heard. That's a discussion. And he could do, silly matches as well. And then he could just do, crazy matches and do some sick stuff in a ring, obviously. And he's killing it up and beyond. And everywhere where he goes, he does really, really well. And so obviously that's a big name to come in which that, obviously I see that and I'm like, okay, this is going to be very interesting what he does and how he does it. And then he can do any style, and whoever he's matched up against is always such an interesting, style and match on what he does.
Yeah, very excited to have him, definitely.
And then
definitely be coming back too.
I have a feeling he's on your second card. It's I think a fair guess.
Yeah, maybe you'll have to wait.
And then another wrestler who's been around and she was on my other show in my podcast is Davienne was the second announcement. And Davienne is killing it, and Davienne looks like one of those cool kids just walking around. And so obviously Davienne's also very much a recognizable name, and she's been killing it up in New England and all over for that matter. So what was that like bringing her in? Because she could go with anybody as well.
I started way back in the day. Davienne was the only training partner. She started a couple weeks after me, and so we were basically brother and sister at training for a couple months. And so I've always been paying attention to her career, and she's just super tough, and her style now is rough, tough, and gonna bang you up. Just gonna throw you around the ring, and that's and she's one of the best, if not the best, no offense, woman in New England in this area. So it's a great local, like a New England draw, like bringing her in. So very excited to see what she can do as well in this environment. But yeah, no, she was. I think she was one of the top of the list.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer bringing her in. I mean, we've both wrestled Davey, so actually, I think Mikowski is the only person that we haven't wrestled.
No, I wrestled him. I was in a tag match with him.
Oh yeah, I was in that match.
You were in that match too. You got beat up.
I won that match.
Yeah, you won that match, but you got beat up by Mikowski and by me, and then probably us together.
And then obviously the reason why I bring up Davienne is because obviously, as you stated, she is sort of local talent, and that she is very much New England. And she's a name that if you are in New England and you're around in New England long enough, you're going to wrestle her. And it's very cool when you have that going on. And obviously, everybody who's been in New England for years has had some interaction with Davienne in a ring, whether you're teaming with her, up against her, or her interfering in some capacity. Obviously, she's a part of it. And so it's very cool on that front. And then you guys also brought in the main event, which are a tag team. And I know you haven't announced another tag team yet, but I think you're going to have at least one tag team match. And they're the opponents. No spoilers, guys. I know I'm rooting part of it.
Just wait a couple of weeks. Actually, I think it's 2 weeks. They'll be announced.
But what is this like bringing them in? Because they were just on AEW, and obviously they're getting attention. And that's cool as well, where obviously there's a lot of name recognition being thrown around here.
Main event is personally, as of right now, my favorite tag team in America. And that's a big statement to say. I really love those guys. They're great in the ring. I've seen them have killer matches with the Sea Stars every single time they wrestle. It's not just like a one and done thing. Every single match they're in, it's something special. And I think that's what they are literally the definition of tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
And I think with Grind, we really want to showcase that. We don't want to just throw two wrestlers together and say, you're a team. We want to bring in these guys they travel the road together. They're wrestling in matches every other weekend together. Real tag teams. And I want to see what that they can do against another real tag team, you know? We're not just going to throw them against some people. We're going to bring in some great teams for them to face off against and stuff. And they're definitely going to be around more often than not.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the most important things to me personally as a tag team wrestler is bringing people who work hard to kind of establish their tag team to be able to cross over into different promotions and bring people in like that who maybe they don't always get the opportunity to come in. Maybe they get thrown into other, scenarios, whether it's singles, whether it's tagging with someone else randomly on the show. And we also want to make sure that the tag match on our show is special, like it feels special because it is the tag match. There's a lot of times where you see a couple of matches that are tagged on cards, and it kind of gets a little intimidating in a way as a tag team wrestler. If I know another tag match is going out before me, I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I don't do something similar to what they're doing, or we don't repeat something, and then the audience is like, oh, the last match did that. Like the first match is always going to look like they did it better because they're the one that they saw first. We want to be able to let them have the floor that night.
Yeah, and to even talk about that, because obviously when two people team up who don't normally team up, it sort of, doesn't make it believable unless, they were forced into that situation by like a GM or something, and it's obviously story driven. But, when you have two teams that are traveling the road together and know each other and that, are like brothers or sisters in a ring type of thing, or like family in a ring, it makes a huge difference because you're like, okay, these people trust each other, and then they're opposing another team that trusts each other, and that this other team knows, all their moves, and that, it's almost like telecommunication between the partners, and that helps. And then on top of that, you also mentioned something very interesting as well, where it's this idea that if you have 9 tag team matches in a row, maybe if the entire card was actually all tag team, it really wouldn't have the same effect. But when you have 3 tag team matches, it starts getting watered down significantly, and things don't become special anymore. And it's kind of like, I hate to say we're putting things in boxes, but when you only have 1 tag team match on the card, obviously that is that attraction, and people can laser focus on that. I don't have to worry about saying, oh, this is going to be something else. That, the next tag match is going to be a tag match. It kind of, makes it special and important in a lot of ways, and it elevates it.
Yeah, and it also gives those tag teams to show their stuff, because if you have 3 tag matches on a card, unless it's a tournament show, like if it's a tag tournament type thing, I get having all tag matches. But if you have 3 tag matches on a show, some of these guys aren't showing what they can do as a team because they're trying to, okay, let's not outshine the other match and stuff like that. So we're going to give main event, we're going to give the world, hopefully, because we're going to be streaming it, a chance to see what main event can actually do in a 15, 20-minute long tag team wrestling match. It's just, what can they do? They're already crazy enough in the matches they are. What are they going to do when they got more time, Like, just that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see what these guys, let's get to that level, let's break those glass ceilings that are put upon us and show everybody why we're professional wrestlers, And, man, I'm very excited to see what they can do.
And obviously, I could tell that you don't want to say who they're.
Yeah.
He's having a hard time right now.
I'm sure if you did this.
Like you said, there's only one other tag team on the show, so it's like, oh, we can give you this match right now, but no, we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait. We're being good. We have a schedule. It's written out. We're not going to give the dirt sheets anything to run with.
Well, I'm sure the team is pretty well established they're going to face. And I have a list, a very short list of who it can be, but I'm not going to go say anything because if I say it, it's going to start laughing and that's going to ruin everything. So we're not going to go down that route. But obviously, talent forward is Kevin Koo. And I like Kevin Koo. And my Kevin Koo story is that I've seen and have been seeing Kevin Koo when his tattoo on his back wasn't colored. So when it was just the outline, so this is going back like 5-6 years, and it took forever for him to get that entire thing colored. Like it legitimately took him like 4 years to get that thing colored.
Oh. I can just imagine like every time he sold a couple t-shirts, like just straight to the tattoo parlor to get like a little bit. I mean, I've been with Ashley whenever she would get tattoos, and I don't think I could ever personally waste my money on tattoos because I just see how much something costs, and I'm just like, nope. Let me not get into that.
So obviously, but he's had great matches. Obviously, pulling out of MLW. Obviously, Violence is Forever, and everything that they've done as a tag team. And so, what is that like to bring him in? Because obviously, he's another great name that's out there, and he's just been killing it for years. Obviously, he's part of a big tag team as well, which opens up the door for some other stuff. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff that can be done, and I just like watching Kevin Koo wrestle.
Well, I was actually I believe he says his second match ever, way back in the day when I was not Rip Byson. And he was not this iteration of Kevin Koo before he moved out of New England, because he started training up here. So this is kind of like, he's been up here for Limitless and beyond and stuff, so it's not a homecoming, but I always feel like, home away from home. Like, this is where he got his start, so it's nice to bring him back up here. And, man, there was, like, oh, man, when did he leave? I think there was, like, 4 or 5 years in between the time that, I just seen him online, but I hadn't really seen him doing anything, and then I really got reconnected with his style and what he's doing over the past couple of years. And man, it's awesome. And it's literally exactly the definition of what pro wrestling grind is going to be. Just that hard hitting, no mercy, win at any cost. Either you drop the guy on your head, you're going to choke him out, or you're going to knock him out with something. Man, that's what he's pretty much the definition of pro wrestling grind, style-wise. So it's very exciting to have him up there. And again, all these guys, I'm just going to say it now, all these guys are definitely going to be coming back at some point, whether it's second, third, fourth, or fifth show. All these guys got to bring them back before they're gone, because obviously, hopefully they go on to greener pastures and wrestling and stuff and make their money. But man, we take advantage of these guys because they're all just fantastic.
And I do want to talk about that because that's super interesting. And then there's one more, obviously, that I want to mention that was mentioned today, and it's Kobe Christ. And obviously, that's international talent. And so, obviously, you guys aren't just staying in the States or Canada or Mexico, but you're obviously bringing people, as I stated, from all over the world now. And obviously, the world's a lot smaller than it used to be. But what is that like? 'Cause that's also a whole different level as well, bringing in international talent, because that just says, hey, we're trying to step out onto the big stage a little bit.
Well, with Kobe's a special talent because he's from the Maritimes area, which is the easternmost part of Canada. And I've wrestled him a bunch of times up there, and I've wrestled him down here. But he's also taken – he's such a student of the game, and he's learned pretty much every style there could possibly be, and he's thrown out what he doesn't like, and he's kept what he's liked. And he's done a tour, like a 3 or 4 month tour over in England. So he learned that British style as well when he was over there. So he's coming in with a whole bag of tricks and stuff that I'm excited for. Some people may not have ever seen before. He has that potential to really wow some people. And he's also just personally a really close friend and a supporter of us, always have been, and just known him forever. And he's not seen much in America, and I want to really open that door for him, because there was a outcry for I think it was over the pandemic for Canadian wrestlers because they weren't getting much work because of the border closed, and it really sucked for them. You know, and like I just want to try to start showcasing some of these guys that some people may not have heard about up there, but these are fantastic wrestlers. You know, so Kobe's a perfect starting point for us to introduce that door opening for us and stuff. So they're very excited to bring him in.
It's also really funny because you mentioned like with the borders being closed, but I remember like you going crazy with how positive he was during the time because you were like, I would have lost my mind if I couldn't wrestle. But Kobe's constantly messaging me positive things.
Yeah. Kobe was keeping my head straight, and I was able to still wrestle over the pandemic. He wasn't allowed to do anything. They really weren't allowed to do anything up there other than secretly train, you know, against the ever-watching government of Canadians. But yeah, so like
the government I think of that's overwatching us. That's right at the top. Canada, right there. Yeah. I think in Canada, they're watching their citizens just like that, like hawks, just making sure, you know, they can't train wrestling. You know, they can do a bunch of other stuff. Healthcare, hey, call us up, we'll drive you to the hospital, but wrestling, can't do it.
Yeah.
So such a bad joke at so many levels. But before we get into everybody getting signed, because that's where everything is going. What's super cool, and obviously there's going to be a bunch more talent that's going to be announced. Obviously next week, I think some talent's going to be announced. 2 weeks from now, we're going to find out who the main event is wrestling, and then a few other people. And then obviously, I think there's only like 14 or 16, you know, wrestlers collectively. Which means that obviously I think you've already announced that you're going to be on the show, so that eliminates.
That means we can.
Well,
skip
I mean,
you.
I'm going to use the forbidden term of mark. I'm a mark for myself, so of course I'm running a show. I'm going to put myself on the show. I'm free talent. I'm not costing money. You know.
Hey, if I run a show, I could tell you who's my tag team partner. And it's going to be phenomenal, and he's going to get angry when I say it. But me and Killian McMurphy are tag teaming up, and
there you go.
Going to be Shattered Emeralds for Sonic the Hedgehog. So
there you go. See, that's the best part. Also, and actually going into why I'm booked, because I know there's probably going to be some butthurt people. Oh, why is Rip wasting a spot on his brand new show on himself? Well, see, here's the thing: is I also have. I don't know if it's ego, but
I think confidence.
I want to give motivation in the sense that I want everybody who's not in my match to have a better match than the booker and the promoter. I want it to be a goal for them to go out there and out wrestle my match. You know, I'm not saying I'm the best wrestler in the world, but I want them to have that chance. Oh, I had a better match to the booker on the show, you know? Yeah, he may have booked himself, but my match was way better than him. I want that. That's my little challenge to the, you know, it's like, it's friendly competition. I'm not the best wrestler in the world. I'll never, ever say that. But if you're booked on my show, I want you to be better than me, you know? Because, if you're not better than me, why book you?
So to even go into that, because obviously something that's super cool is that all the people, very much that I would say 85% of the people that I interview, and I'd be hitting probably 170 this year on this show, I would say 85% of them are handpicked by me. And it's a very cool thing when you get to handpick your guests. And then you pick and you say, hey, I want to see if this person wants to be on, and I chose. And every once in a while I take somebody who asks, but I have a lot of control. And so everybody that you booked on this show is handpicked. And it's a very, very cool thing. And not every wrestling show is run that way. Sometimes, obviously, sort of things fall into place, and sometimes it's asked, but sometimes there's a committee vote sometimes with wrestling shows. So what is this like for the both of you? Because obviously it's very hand-picked. It's very hands-on. And you can say, hey, I don't want this person on my show, or I'm not interested in having, and nobody's telling you who to book, how to book it. There's no committee vote, unless there is between the two of you, and that's something we don't know. But obviously, what is that like? Because it is very cool when you say, hey, this is the card I want to build, and this is what I think is the best wrestling card out there for what we want to accomplish at this show, and you can't tell me who to book and who not to book.
Well, we have a list and it's somewhere laying around here, of about 75 wrestlers that we wrote down, said these people fit what we want to do, you know. And obviously we've gotten messages from other wrestlers just saying, hey, we want to come help out, and if you have a spot type of thing. But like we already have a list right now. We'll get to them as we sprinkle in more and more people or run more often. But it's just, man, we don't necessarily owe anybody anything, and not saying that in a bad way. We're just like, the best part about this show is that we don't have to run it, you know, like it's just,
We're trying to be politically correct.
yeah, I'm trying so hard to be politically correct because I don't know who's watching.
So I think part of like the way that
I could say it very nicely if you would like me to. You could correct me any point. Is that you're running the show you want to run because you don't have to answer to anybody. Much like how I run this.
There you go. Yeah, thank you. Now someone else said it, so now I don't seem like a jerk.
So there are people.
He said it.
He said it.
So I'll give.
I don't know what we're doing.
I'll give the example. So there are people who message me and I don't like their comic project. Guess what? You're not coming on my show. It's not that maybe your comic project did $10,000 on Kickstarter. If I don't like it, I'm not touching it because it doesn't suit me. There are projects that do very well that I'm not thrilled about and that I can't do anything. It's the same thing when I was doing a bunch of comic reviews. If I read your book and I think it sucks, I'm going to write that it sucks, but if I think it's mediocre and I have nothing to say on it and I can't write a review, I don't have to write the review on it because it's not my job. I don't get paid for writing this. I do it because I want to. It's a choice. And so there's a lot of stuff going on with this, and politically correct, not politically correct, but it's the idea that you don't have to book anybody or not book a match that you don't want to book, because it's not about, however you're funding this, it's sort of taken care of to some degree, which also gives freedom in a lot of ways as well, which is the other side, to put it politely.
I think that's another thing is like some promotions kind of end up doing this thing where like, they want to book a person, and then if that person has someone who's just riding down with them, they'll give them a match. Regardless if they pay them good or not, they'll put them on the show just to fill a quota of how many matches they need to have on the show. We have such a short quota for how many matches we're going to have on a show that each one needs to hold its weight. I don't want to book someone just for the sake of filling up a card and then kind of, oh, here you go because you got booked last second, here's $40. Like, I'm not doing that. That's not the show we're running. We're running the show where these are the people we're bringing in to hold their match because they fit the style and because we know they can go. We're also booking people who we know are like genuinely good people. That's another thing that like is on the report card, the criteria of like how we're booking the show. Like you may be like a phenomenal professional wrestler, but if we've crossed paths with you and you're someone who we feel like might rub someone the wrong way or like isn't the most
I'm going to ask you a really stupid question. What defines professional wrestler? And the reason why I ask this is because I view professional wrestlers and wrestlers very differently than most people. I find a professional knows how to respond to an email and decline an interview politely and not get nasty with me. I find that a professional knows how to behave at a show and doesn't do certain things, even, when I'm going up to their merch table. Okay? I find a wrestler can do a suplex in a ring. I find a wrestler, it's a big issue where, and obviously 2020 exposed a bunch of problems where there are wrestlers and there are professional wrestlers. There's a difference between the two. The word is professional first. It is not wrestler first.
Yeah. That was something that's like, it was a super eye-opening experience for us of like.
Very controversial topic, I know.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're safe talking about it just because like all the people that we've thankfully been able to have in our inner circle are genuine people, and we don't bring anyone in who we feel like could, ruin that fun locker room environment of like, we don't want to bring.
They're not going to ruin the safe space. I mean, like you said, this is professional wrestling should be your job. It's not necessary. Yes, a lot of us are friends and stuff, and it's nice to hang out with them at shows. But you got to remember that when you get to a wrestling show, you're punching in, and that's your job. And you got to be the same rules that if you work at it when you work at a 9 to 5 should apply to this, because it's job. Everybody wants to make money in this business, act professional, and that's another thing with how we're booking too on our list. You might look at our list and you'd be like, oh wow, there's a lot of people on here that are missing, and it's like, yeah, we're not also just booking friends.
Yeah.
I genuinely like everybody we're booking. We're not booking our best friends just because they're our best friends. If they're our best friends and they're a hell of a professional wrestler and they can give us something that can work with us, then they can be on the card. But just because we hang out and had a few laughs in the locker room and stuff, and because I like you as a person, doesn't mean you're booked on the show. This is a business first, and then we get into that other stuff. It's a job. And that's how I've always looked at my wrestling. Personally, my career, how I act at shows and everything, and I try to act as professional as possible. Sometimes it gets a little gray, but which will go with joking around and everything with your buddies. But you got to remember, you always got to take that step back. This is a business, and there's a certain way you should act. Like you said, it's professional wrestling. It's not wrestling professional.
No, there have been instances with me where people have been drunk in locker rooms and have said things to me that were not appropriate as a fan. That's a problem. There have been people who have been high and have responded to me in a way that wasn't professional, and I'm a fan, which is a big issue. And I'm not in the locker room. I'm legitimately going up to your merch table to buy a T-shirt, and you're basically turning down money from me and ruins the experience, and that's just not acceptable. I'm not approaching as a friend, and that's why I think it's a big thing. And I think that, obviously the term professional wrestlers, and I think, that's something that, I guess companies and promotions actually have to understand. And also the other thing is that showing up on time, how you act, how you engage with people, those things matter, I feel now, tremendously.
Yeah, they definitely do. And I'm glad, that we've finally crossed over into this new chapter with wrestling where you don't have to book someone just because they're a draw. Like, even the fans understand, like, the background aspect of a person should hold weight regardless if they're a draw or not.
And so obviously that's something that I'm actually glad, because obviously you guys are running on October 22nd. And so that's coming out. I think it's going to be streamed, as you stated. And so obviously what is that like going into this? Because this is around the corner. Let's get away from controversy. Complete shift there.
Happiness.
Oh, yep, that's fine. We don't have to talk about that dark stuff anymore. Not coming up soon enough. I'm ready to run tomorrow. The show's been booked for about a month now, completely booked.
Yeah.
So, and we've had the card for about a month now. So we already know what we're having. So now we're just slowly using this time to really promote and get people interested, so that we don't just have an empty building on the 22nd. So that's why it's taking so long for us to give these out, because we know that we're trying to keep interest there the entire time, instead of just blowing our load per se and letting everybody know what we're doing in the first month, and then it's still 3 months away.
Well, we know that you're booked every card now, so.
Yeah, I don't have to be booked any card. I might suck, and I might unbook myself. I might have to put you in.
No, we need free talent, so you can do it.
There you go. Yeah.
and so obviously, I mean, you're inching towards that, and then obviously, and I'm about to get back into a controversial topic slightly, but obviously the world is still messed up from COVID and all that stuff. And so what is that like, being in effect for you guys? Because obviously I don't know what Massachusetts looks like. I'm in Connecticut. Obviously everything is crazy. I don't think anybody knows fully what the hell's going on with all this stuff. Obviously I'm vaccinated. But in my world, I don't know what New York Comic Con looks like, and I'm not going because I'm scared a little bit on how it's going to look like and where it's going and all that stuff. And I'm not doing any Comic Con convention stuff from my perspective till next year. So what are you guys feeling about that, and where is that all going, and what's about to happen with that stuff? Because both from a wrestling talent and even from a booking talent perspective, and then also safety is a big thing and all that stuff.
We're going, as we can't be in control of the fans that show up and pay money for a ticket and show up.
We'll have masks at the doors for people who like want to wear a mask inside the building. If that's something that they feel comfortable more with, then definitely yes. But for the talent, everyone's going to have to provide a negative COVID test the week of the show, regardless if they're vaccinated or not, just because I know there's that gray area. I'm not sure when the new Delta vaccination is going to be available.
Or Lambda too. There's like another one that just popped out, which is crazy. It's a very wild situation going on.
Yeah, all we can do is be responsible for the people we book, and that's including talent and crew. We're going to require tests the week of, and we're going to listen to the state rules. We're going to follow them to a T. If we come to October and we've announced the whole show, but Massachusetts says, hey, we're going back down to a lockdown, well, that sucks. We're not going to break those rules. We're going to follow the rules and try to that's the only way we can really do this, because we want to run a show, but you got to listen to the rules. You got to play by the rules. And we're going to require that all of our talent and crew play by those same rules that we are playing by. And that's all we can do. I'm not going to force anybody to go out and get a vaccine, but I would prefer that you come in healthy and safe. However you do that, you come in healthy and safe, so that everybody, because it's not about you, it's about everybody else. If you're healthy and safe, and they're healthy and safe, and they're healthy and safe, then everyone should be healthy and safe. Unless a fluke thing happens, because that's the thing with the flu or any sickness. A fluke thing could happen. It could ruin the whole thing. So we're just going to try to follow the rules to a T, and that's all we can do.
Because that's pretty much what happened pretty much at the Collective, I think, in 2020. They had it, and then a bunch of wrestlers got sick out of nowhere. And, well, it was a bad situation, and it didn't help wrestling in general. And so, obviously, it is a big concern. And then also, I'm assuming you're going to wipe down the ring in between matches and things like that as well, because that's kind of the new big thing of just making sure that the ring is clean and that it's, relatively safe as far as that and all the simple stuff.
Yeah, they did that in Japan when I was there, which COVID wasn't that was at the start of it, so it wasn't a worldwide pandemic yet. That was just kind of more of a normal thing that they did. I found out.
I wish back even several years ago when you find out that more wrestling promotions wipe down their rings, because some of those rings were disgusting even before we had a pandemic.
Yeah,
so we're gonna try to keep our stuff very clean and stuff and safe.
The good thing is that Rip is really OCD, and he's really a germaphobe. So, that's going to be a good thing going in and we'll have a bunch of students coming to the show who are just going to help us out with all the little details like that of, making sure everything is run smoothly, making sure things get cleaned in between areas.
And then obviously even going further into that, because again, I hate to make this about me, because it's not about me. It's about you guys. But it's always been known in the anime and comic world that when you have 20,000 anime comic fans, somebody has something at a con and you put everybody together and somebody's going to get sick. It's called con crud. And now I understand that if you have a wrestling show, there's 500 people. Obviously 500 people versus 20,000. The risk is significantly less just because there's less people. But even still, when you're at a show and you have 500 people, somebody has something, that thing could still spread. Or if 50 people have something, it's safe that 100 people can get sick out of those 50 people if somebody has the flu. And so I don't think anything has ever been 100% safe. So I think it's very important to wipe down rings and things like that, because obviously that makes a big difference for your talent and a variety of other people around too, because God forbid a wrestler has something and they just don't know it, and obviously that's something in there. So I think it's very important to have, rings clean and also have some spacing and things like that, because it makes a big difference. And it's just a little bit of safety goes a long way, I feel.
Yeah. And we're also going to be under that capacity of 500. We're looking to just keep it at like 200.
Well, the building capacity is only 200. We're going to listen. We're not going to be one of those shows who the building goes, oh, you got 200 people and you try to squeeze in 300.
Yeah,
no,
we're
going
like,
to listen to that because
shoulder.
Well, also you don't want to deal with fire marshal coming in and shutting down the show and stuff like that. We're going to keep to the rules. Like I said, if there's rules set, follow the rules and everything will work out fine, or should work out fine. And
then to even go further, because one of the things that also I feel helps wrestling now is that everything is being streamed. And I think you mentioned that this is going to be streamed. I know it's going to be videotaped at the very least at this point, because every show now is videotaped. And so I think, is it going to be streamed?
It probably won't. This one probably will not be a live stream. It will probably go up after. At some point, we're still trying to figure out what streamings are. Like, we don't know if we're going to do Fight or IWTV or and we haven't signed any contracts with that yet. But it's going to be on one of those, because you need to have your product be seen. This is welcome to Wrestling 2021. If you're showing a show that's not being seen, or being streamed or aired or videotaped, why are you running a show?
And so obviously the reason why I bring this up is that obviously this first one's not going to, but obviously going forward, that also helps in a lot of ways as well with capacity and breaking even, because now, obviously I live in Connecticut, so I'm not that far off. It will be a one-day trip for me because I'll just stay in a hotel and then I'll come back home. But, somebody who lives in California might be interested in watching this, but they're not going to fly into, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But they might want to watch it. Because, well, they obviously know Beyond, they know Limitless, and they're like, oh, I know Delmi, I know Rip. Obviously I want to see what their show is going to be. And so that's super important. And that also changes the game tremendously because it changes your gate in a lot of ways. And I hate to dive into the business, but it makes the difference between profitability and not profitability now. And it's a huge difference. And that also probably takes some stress off to some degree, knowing that if you have, on one of these, IWTV or Fight, and if it's a buy-in or it's part of a subscription and you're getting a cut of it, that helps tremendously.
Yeah, it's just eyes on your product. We're producing a product, so you want people to see it. You want people to buy into it, whether if it's streaming or if they're watching it a week later when it airs. Because I know Limitless has a lot of success with. They don't often stream live. They often film it and then they release it later that month, and they still get they have the local eyes on it, and then the rest of the world gets to see those matches and stuff, and it's just good. It's good all around.
And then also just getting into big libraries, as I stated before. One of the things is that it's on demand that matters. It's big libraries that matter. And then it's also complete customization are the three things that are going to be dictating entertainment for the next 10 to 20 years. And obviously we see that with big entertainment, Disney Plus, AT&T, with, Warner Media and what they've just done. And Time Warner Media, obviously Discovery, Hulu, Peacock, huge libraries. And also a lot of this stuff is on your time that matters. And then obviously I come from the comic world where now everything is becoming customized as far as what rewards you want on Kickstarter. So obviously that's going to be the future. And I feel like obviously if this is on IWTV and I can watch it at 4 a.m. or I can watch it at 4 p.m, I'm more likely to watch it, even if it has a premiere as well. Yep. Which is the other thing too, which is cool. But like sometimes with Limitless, I'll watch it a day later because I'm busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so obviously I think that's a big, big thing going on. And so obviously I do want to talk about tickets. So what's going on with tickets? Because obviously people like me might want to come. I know that Justin Del Rio might take a road trip up there, and he's a friend, so he's in Connecticut. And there's a bunch of other people in Connecticut that I know that are crazy wrestling fans. So who knows, maybe we'll all take a bus up there.
And there you go, rent a party bus. Yeah, have a big Connecticut party bus show up to the show. That'll be good. We're gonna be setting up an online ticket store probably within the next month or two, and we'll get that fired up soon. We're still working on that. But yeah, and then when they're up, and we'll let you know.
So that's going to be fun. So obviously that sort of leads me into what I want to finally ask, and that's obviously I want to give you both opportunities to self-promote. And so where can people, find out where those tickets are coming out, when and where, and what's a good place to follow? Obviously, what is Pro Wrestling Grinds, social media? I know that you got I think Twitter, wow, I can't speak today. I don't know if you have a website up yet. I don't know if you got a Facebook page. I don't know if you have an Instagram yet. Obviously, where can people follow you guys on that? And then where are your personal social medias / wrestling stores / way to support you guys?
So Twitter and Instagram for Pro Wrestling Grind is going to be at Grind Puro. That is GRINDPURO. Thankfully, we got the handle to be the same for both. And then my Instagram and Twitter is going to be at DelmiXO.
And my Instagram is Iron Rip Byson, and on Twitter it's at Rip Effin Byson. And there will be
F is for fun, guys.
That's for fun. Rip's a fun guy. F spelled with a couple extra letters. Anyways, and then Facebook there's a Facebook page. We're in the works of getting it because that's where we're going to do our big event pages to invite everybody out that likes the page and everything. And tickets will be posted when they're finally out. We'll be on all 3 of those social medias. And actually, we might even set up an email with our email with that. But that will be announced on all 3 of those.
Yeah, coming soon.
Yeah, coming soon. Within the month, hopefully. Hopefully. We got too many online ticket stores, so we got to weed them out.
And then obviously it is on October 22nd.
22nd, not the second, 22nd.
22nd.
It's Rip Bison's birthday, so everybody should show up for at least this one show. It's going to be a special time. If you don't want to show up ever again, that's all on you. This one is a birthday party. It's okay. Everyone come. It's 2 birthdays. It's Rip Bison's birthday and it's Pro Wrestling Grind's birthday. So 22nd of October. This year, not next year. This year.
So your birthday's only this year.
Oh no! Don't say that.
Yeah, I stay the same age until I just disappear.
That's such a bad joke. But having said that, obviously, Who Made You is the show. Obviously, October 22nd. I'm going to figure out if I'm going to go up depending on my circumstance and if I have a ride. And if me and Jason Del Rio can find a party bus, we'll show up with like 50 people, and it'll be crazy. It'll be 50 people and then the other 100 people, more or less, and we'll drown out all of the good guys. So expect a big cheer for the heels if we do that.
You can cheer for whoever you want at the show.
But all joking aside, obviously, you guys should go check out their social media, follow them. It makes a big difference. Their Twitter is brand new, and all of the people who are going to be on the show are being announced there every single week. Obviously, there's been 5 so far. I guess any updates, because things happen in wrestling, will be announced there as well. Tickets will be announced on Twitter, obviously the Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Obviously, I think Delmi and Rip, you guys are going to retweet off of Pro Wrestling Grind as well. So if you somehow miss it because things get lost in Twitter, or if you are in a Twitter fight with somebody right now, or something that I don't want to talk about. And no, it's not politics. It's not politics. Unfortunately, people don't like Thor or Sailor Moon, but that's a different discussion. Anyhow, obviously, you should go support that. And even going further, you should support me. I have Buy Me a Coffee, guys. So if you like what we're doing here, consider clicking that and buying me a coffee, because it goes a long way and keeps this show up and running, and it helps tremendously. But even going further, share the interview around and share it on Twitter, because that also matters tremendously as well. And I'm going to give both of you the final word, unless you guys want to wrestle for it. And you can do it on this cool show coming out on October 22nd.
Thank you so much. Who Made Who, the debut show of Pro Wrestling Grind, October 22nd. If you can't be there, definitely just follow us and stick along to the journey. And for those who can make it, tickets will be on sale soon. So definitely get on down to East Hampton. It's going to be a great show. Every match is going to steal the card. And yeah, I hope your match is just the one that, doesn't.
Yeah, I hope my match sucks so I don't have to book myself anymore.
Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself. So on that note, it's a wrap.